All right, so I'm really excited for this presentation tonight because even though I'm the program manager of Venture Cafe, I'm also a member of the artist-run curatorial collective Grizzly Grizzly based in Philadelphia. So Grizzly Grizzly is a gallery located in the 319 building on North 11th Street near Chinatown that's also home to many other artist-run galleries and artist studios. So 1 year ago, we had to stop having exhibitions in our space due to COVID, and we spent a good amount of time trying to figure out the best use of our spaces since we were still paying rent. So ultimately, the entire second floor of the building, which is home to Automat, Pink Noise Projects, Marginal Utility, Practice Gallery, and Grizzly Grizzly, decided to open up our galleries for artists who needed a place to work. So this came to be known as the 319 residency, and it's been in effect since February 2021. And Jayne Struble is our first artist in residence at Grizzly Grizzly, and she's occupied this space for 4 weeks. And in that time, she developed the project that she's going to show tonight. So with great pleasure, I would like to now turn things over to Jayne.
All right. Thank you so much, Angela. And thank you for the opportunity to take over Grizzly Grizzly. It was so great. I had a lot of fun being in the space and just having somewhere to go and, see other artists in the hallways and stuff with masks on, just say hello. It was really a special time. So I put together a video-based presentation here. And it is a little bit of an experiment to try to engage in this kind of new Zoom land artist talk platform in what I hope is a different and interesting way. So there will be some time at the end for questions and conversation, but it is kind of a let's let it play kind of situation. So, the chat is there if anyone wants to put questions in as they come up, and I will be sure to address them at the end of the presentation. So again, thank you for being here. I know it's lovely outside, so I appreciate it. Hopefully I can bring a little bit of the nature indoors to us tonight. Sorry. There we go. Oh, let's do that.
I am sitting at the edge of the Wissahickon Creek, about 20 minutes or 10.7 miles away from my home. I am here right at sunrise to talk to you about my work, right at 6:15 a.m. I think back to some of my earliest memories, outdoors, camping, and sitting around fires and sleeping in tents, as some of my clearest and most vivid memories. As a family, we would always find somewhere new to camp and explore. I've come here to tap into some of that magic and respect that I have for outdoor spaces. Especially at night or first thing in the morning, there is a world that exists here when the park closes and everyone is at home. I think this is why I'm whispering. These spaces make you whisper, or just be still. I make work from a very honest place, or I try to, which ultimately humbles me. I will never fully understand why visual language has had such a strong hold on me, but I know that has to be rooted in my appreciation for looking, which started with nature. As soon as you see something beautiful or noteworthy, our first reaction is to get out our cameras. We want to preserve or hold on to special moments. But pixels don't give us that time and space back again. They can help jog our minds back, but there is no reliving. This is especially true about the moments we didn't realize were important or pivotal at the time. Getting them back just will never happen. Memories are housed within us and can be summoned through specific stimulants. Sometimes they are welcomed, and sometimes they crash around us in a way we never saw coming and stops us cold. Memories are like destinations along paths through the landscape. Sometimes they are well worn and easily accessed again and again over time. Others emerge from overgrown areas that did not appear to be inhabited. The work I make is made up ultimately of pixels, but also of memories, both physical and emotional. My work allows me to connect a physicality to fleeting memories that are difficult or unwelcomed repetitions. My process involves drawing highly detailed versions of images in graphite that are seemingly very exacting to what they represent, but in actuality, when examined further, are made up of many marks that deconstruct to nothing but a counting of time. These drawings are not available for prolonged evaluation. They solely live within the video works, which reveal themselves in small glimpses that come and go like ghosts of memories. Susceptible to the wind, these glimpses dance on the screen, blocking or revealing depending on the perspective of the viewer. Shifting perspectives or expectations of a viewing experience allows me to work with my own frustrations of making. Very rarely does the entire idea or situation reveal itself. Actually, no, that never happens. Sometimes the situations that we think are so clear or so obvious are the things that we end up needing to rethink or reconceive all the way back to the start. I went on a backpacking trip to the Anza Borrega State Park. I knew two things going into the trip. One, I was going to the desert, and two, I needed good boots. So I packed my bag, researched, got on a plane, and thought I had an idea of what I was in for. I was very mistaken. The first day we hiked out to the backcountry, to what would be home for the next week. We hiked for 10 hours. It was dark by the time we made it to our destination. I barely got my tent upright before falling face first into my sleeping bag. I woke up to a new strange world. Unzipping my tent, I saw the sunrise over the mountains, changing the ground from gray to pink. The sand was cold, but warming quickly. My idea of what this experience would be dropped from my mind as I tried to etch this into my conscious forever. Tarps that we strung up behind a large rock unfurled and popped in the desert breeze. Small lizards paused on the tan, red, and gold rocks to make eye contact, then scurry away from view. I studied the rocks, the texture, the heat they radiated. Talking now, I can replay this in my mind, like the first few notes of a song, but then it starts to skip or start over. Like I want to stay there, but the totality of the time is lost. In the same way that pain or hurt can be comforted by saying it will get easier. Memories we intend to hold on to become these small, familiar loops we can happily replay, fast forward, and rewind. But after so much of this editing, how authentic are these new renditions? Drawing for me reduces this anxiety of loss. The experience of making the work is always surpassed by the final piece and the potential it holds. The labor is only worth it because of the artifact that is brought to life due to the process. The work would not be the same without the physical labor evidenced in its marks. In stark contrast, the video components of the work come from times and places that are past and can never be returned to, except within these fleeting video displays. As evidenced by the phenomena of visiting the same place or vacation or partaking in a specific tradition, I question if we ever get the first experience again. Or do we feel attached to these places now just because of those past memories? As we walk the spaces that in the past have housed strong memories, our current experience becomes affected, and the space and memory become entangled. Stitching together memories through the recollection of space layers together the physical and emotional quality of memory. There are two perspectives that can be taken on place. One, places are sites of residence or economic activity, just backdrops for human enterprise. Ahistorical and has the ability to change hands or be replaced. Second, and in stark contrast, places can be seen as fixed locations, specified, eternal. These places do not change identity. Place in terms of where things have happened, where things are, as opposed to where we are. As I have studied and researched ideas around concepts of place, I have come to have great respect for the way the Cherokee people and their identities and histories tied to the land and places. even down to the directional names that are common in speaking about places. In addition to north, south, east, and west, there's also up and down and here, meaning that the place is here. We are just somewhere around it as opposed to being in the center of it. I am going there compared to the Cherokee way of saying, there I am going. This perspective shift puts into action the feelings I have while within and moving through spaces. The link between memory and places can be used as a kind of mapping. Topogeny is both the physical and mental externalization of memory while listing locations. This can be something that happens while walking down a path or thinking about walking down a path. The shift from an overhead drawing of a line on a map to show a path to an on-the-ground approach leaves some room for the possibility that more than just the name of a place can be recollected. Maybe pasts and histories can be mapped in this way. This strategy involves remembering the in-between or liminal spaces to get from one memory to the next. Landmarks are no longer islands to jump onto and off of. They become long links in a chain or trails through the mountains. Paths and trails provide access into nature on a micro and macro scale. Living things follow trails to maneuver their surroundings. Not all trails are equal. American Indian routes were the most efficient way to move through the land. Over time, many evolved to become bridle paths, wagon roads, paved roads, and even highways, some of which survive today, at least in part, along their original courses. The history of this subject, as it relates to land, is full of abhorrent and inhuman crimes against Native peoples by European settlers. This truth of all the land that I have been fortunate enough to walk over and respect motivates me to continue to learn about these histories. The perspective of the land and orientation that American Indians have make me feel like a stranger to the land, but also respectful of the access I have to these spaces and all the potential they possess. The sun just came up about a half hour ago. We've been sitting here for about a half hour. The sun is casting a really beautiful light right over the trees. Right in front of me, I can see the water is almost perfectly mirrored. The tree branches in the water create beautiful shapes and lines for me to watch, and the ripples that ever so slightly change with the wind or a passing animal, good little creature. Really helps pass the time. There's a bridge to my left where there's clearly traffic. I wish I could get farther away from the city this morning. But at least I have a beautiful view, things to look at and be a part of nature. My feet are getting a little cold, although I did bundle up this morning. The sand under my feet is soft. It seems like this was put here. The sand doesn't seem natural. But the sand is really comfortable, and I appreciate the sand being here for me to sit on. Although I do have a comfy sitting rock. It's about 1.5 feet tall, just big enough for one person to sit, which is nice. I do appreciate having this rock here. In the sand, there's lots of little sticks and leaves. As I've been sitting here for the last half hour, I've been thinking about how this area probably gets pretty flooded. You can tell from the way that the debris is kind of stuck around into the sand and also in little piles. Right to my right, there's a couple of sticks that have, it looks like maybe parts of tree bark or something that's kind of sewn around it. There's also what appears to be bamboo clustered right to the right of me, but it seems like someone kind of chopped it down. It's only about
It was the night
3
before
feet tall.
or the morning
Should be
of
a lot taller.
my birthday, whichever one works, I suppose. It was a really clear
This area of the water's pretty quiet,
and
and then right downstream from me there's some rapids and some white water
in the air
that
was really low for that space.
creates kind of a
and
nice
time.
background sound from my time here by the
I
water.
was standing outside after
And
going
visited a
through
couple times by
the front door,
two geese
opened
that have been
inwards.
pretty territorial to other geese, even when they're just flying over. They sound the alarm.
Into the house. And then I went out into the night to see.
It's been nice to have some fun. Just a little while ago, they
we
climbed out of the water and walked up the bank right past my arm, where I had gotten seemed to have checked me out.
birthday tattoo a little earlier in the
Just
night.
deemed me
It's still fresh in my arm.
unworthy of
To
some
feel that the
sounding
still
of
on
alarms.
it. It was a
The
good
sun
day.
seems to be coming closer now. I
remember
can
that.
see it a little bit more in the trees.
Nerves
coming across the
waking
bank.
up knowing that I was going to
It's
get
only at the
into
very
that day,
top of the trees across
that I wasn't
the
gonna
water
be the
from me
same after
before,
that
but
day.
now I'm starting to notice that on the trees right next to
My
me,
body was gonna have something new.
there's something about
Something
nature that always
exciting.
makes you talk in a little bit of a whisper. This morning it's a
Didn't
little
know
bit chilly, so I'm
What's gonna happen the next
also
day,
able to see my breath a little bit.
which really was
Morning
big change,
air,
biggest change.
which has been kind of nice. I haven't
I feel like somehow I knew gravity was less that
worry
night.
too much about the weather. It's going to be a beautiful day
Things
today,
were
I think, so it's nice to be
shifting and
here in the
moving.
morning when it's a little chilly.
Kind of sense it in
Like
the air.
being here in the morning hours where you get to see
Maybe
the
it was
world
the
wake
full
up,
moon.
the birds.
Maybe it was just time.
Even though I'm only about 20 minutes
There were
outside the
really
city,
tall pine
the
trees
whole new
all
little
around,
world here.
and a lower tree in the front yard. Pine trees reached up so tall that they blocked out some of the night.
There's a tree to my right that I really like. It's leaning
stars
over
looked
really far,
Far,
and
far
there's this
away
dark
as the
ivy
moon was
crawling up it.
covering up.
It's pretty gnarly. It looks like it's been here
Little
for a
lights.
while. It's pretty cool.
The moon can be kind of selfish though.
Has these nuts on top of it, and I'm wondering, I can see some of them right down to my left. I wonder if they fell from that tree, if there's another bigger one nearby.
I remember racking my brain. There's never enough time.
There was
to
a
just
really
be able
big
to sit,
snowstorm,
trying to stare out at nature.
and I remember pushing my nose, my face up
Wanna
to the
get more
window,
time to be here.
watching
good
the
spot I
snow just
found.
hurtle down to the ground, and I saw it stacking up outside.
When you first come down the little hill
Yes.
from where
I
the
knew it
path
was
is,
late, and I knew it was a
there's
really
a little landing with a
cold
rock,
night, a windy night.
and you can tell the rock's pretty warm for people that
I love
probably walk on
imagining
it.
snow at night.
It seems like maybe it's a
Just tell
place
yourself,
to
"Oh,
swim
just stop
in
thinking
the
about us."
summertime.
Just
Might
sleep
also
and everything
make
will
sense
be
why
fine.
there's sand everywhere. It's making it a little
Sometimes
easier
it
for
brings
people
down
to
something, sometimes
get
you
in and out of the water.
should just listen.
It seems like it would be pretty deep here, that the water's pretty slow moving.
And that stillness is there, and your attitude is looking up at gloves, the moon, trying to find perspective
really
or
rising
angle
right
on
now.
something.
The
The
sun
closet was, and it's consuming your thoughts, and
big
it's
tree that's
really
to the garage
right
door.
at the
Corner of the bend in the
had
river.
two
All you
big
could
sliding
think about
doors.
your birthday.
When you opened them, they made all kinds of creaky sounds, and the tracks never
Now that
really
winter's
worked
starting to
right.
go away, I can still
I
see
hadn't
that
been in there until
little
all my
caps
winter
of
clothes
snow
were.
were
That tattoo was the start of something.
And
And even though it was late and
around
I know
across the way.
I probably should have been going to bed. But I remember that I was still diving through that bin
What the water
for
was really
the warmest things I had. I sat down on the kitchen floor, put on my boots and my scarf and my hat. Change is always inevitable. I opened, thinking back
the
to those
garage door.
individual moments of being the one with the handle that you just
Always like
one
the first
person
time you
at
come
the-
to a new place.
and then I got to open the big
new
car
area,
garage
just
door
go and
with one of
sit
those
and be.
gray buttons with the
see
big wide kind of low button
the
on it.
space is
You
like.
hit it and it makes like
It's
a
a good
crunch
space
creak
to
sound,
remind yourself that
and
you have that
the
intuition.
garage door came whizzing up, and
and staring,
the snow was revealed.
standing in
Turned
the
on
driveway,
just the driveway light, and I saw that there was so
what you
much
thought
snow,
was
and
a
it was so great. I walked
Although I wish the
across
road wasn't
the
here.
garage. Really, it was a moment. And it had the
But do you like
moment of calm
that
right
there's
before plants on, so as I stepped,
little
it was a big change.
tiny caps of the tops of the
Loud
cars going
sounds.
by on the bridge?
Just
Kind of
so much
reminds me of
excitement
caps
to
of
start
snow on
running
the
into that
ground.
snow. The garage door
Drive by.
the thickness of the
Appreciate
snow really
that
apparent.
slow
It was
road at least.
really
Water
cool to see
moves.
how much had fallen in such a
Hasn't
short
been
amount of
like
time.
Horns or
As the wind blows.
and then loud.
I jumped into
loud.
the snow
Or
and
there
it
was
was
traffic.
quiet, and it was
Motorcycle
you know, one of those like crunch thuds.
And I remember that
as you
night
kind of
just
drop down into snow. And that's when I realized it was really, really windy. And I remember that it was
where the geese were.
dark and cold, and the snow was kind of like ripping around, and it had all these drifts. But it made the snow really, really felt like I needed one. Smooth and really even. Days following me, and I can't remember exactly what I was doing. And I know I stayed out there for a long time, and I remember just kind of sitting and looking up at the sky and thinking about how cold I was, but how much I didn't want to go inside. Easy, and the snow was keeping me there,
Just notice
giving
now
me
down
a
the
reason
doorways.
to just sit in my driveway
There's something
as
that
a heap of
used to be
snow.
3 days bag or something white or stuff in that.
There were no other
kids
kids in the
jetty
neighborhood
of
that
water.
were out.
I didn't know, but
It was
I
only
knew
me.
trees through
With
rocks.
darkness everywhere. It was super
Keeps
quiet
bobbing
except
back
for the
and forth.
wind.
Sort of
The light
stuck
of the
there,
driveway
looking back, just in a cycle.
over the driveway. It was really
I can see
intense, so
that
there was like a
moment.
really
Feel the
dramatic
tingling
lighting on
burns,
everything,
now.
lots of shadow. I thought I was strong. I remember trying to go a little bit further out into the yard. It just seemed like such a struggle to get anywhere. Times can change, but the moon will stay.
Definitely stands out.
Will
amongst
I've always loved the snow.
all the natural neutral tones of the rocks. There's like just bright white.
There's a newness that it brings, and a peacefulness that's inherent to this.
Water must get a lot
Don't know if
faster
this is
down
a
there.
good memory I have, or one I wish
There's
I
a lot of tree logs stuck
have
in
to
the
remember.
rocks down there.
Just
See, they're all
because of its
smooth,
proximity to
probably
other memories
worn
is
against the rocks
why
over
it's still in
time.
my mind. Maybe it only became
It's always
important
amazing to me when you come
after the
out to a
facts,
spot
after
and
the
sit
actions,
for a
after the
while.
things
That you start to notice,
that changed.
start to imagine what this
I'll
space
never
was
be able
like
to
at
go back
night.
to that space
Last night. This was all here.
at night.
But now I'm here to watch it. It feels slightly different, although
I still have the memories,
I do imagine that the world starts to come alive as that
the
sun
trees, It's closer to me now.
Swaying in the subtle
I can see it,
night air.
almost reaching to the ground in the corner of the
Perspective
river
of
across
looking
from me.
up and out.
It'll feel really nice when the sun
What could
gets
have been and
to where I'm sitting.
what I thought should have been.
Just to get higher up over the
But I
hills
still have my
next to me
tattoo.
first.
And it reminds me that the next phase will happen. And that those nights are clear.
Imagine it's getting close to the time that I can call it a day. It's been a good day already. It's only 6:43 in the morning, but it's a good day already. I'm gonna walk up the little hill here to the path, walk back. Talk to you as I go. Try to remember every step, every stick. The way that the sticks are bending down toward the water. As if being pulled by some magnetic force. It's nice to be here, to see these things. It's nice to know that they exist even when I'm not here.
Cactus.
I wrote deer face cactus and the next line.
Deer face.
Shifting.
Shifting.
Rooted.
Saguaros, plural. SAG UAROS.
What does it mean?
Stepping. Shifting, rooted, saguaros.
What's the single?
Cactus.
Cactus.
Plural. Yeah, cactus, plural.
I wrote deer face cactus and the next line.
Deer face.
Shifting.
Shifting.
Rooted.
Saguaros, plural. SAG UAROS.
What does it mean?
Stepping. Shifting, rooted, saguaros.
What's the single?
Cactus.
Cactus.
Plural. Yeah, cactus, plural.
I wrote deer face cactus and the next line.
Deer face.
Shifting.
Shifting.
Rooted.
Saguaros, plural. SAG UAROS.
What does it mean?
Stepping. Shifting, rooted, saguaros.
The next two videos are, just to give a little context to them, they are the two videos that ended up going into my final installation at Grizzly Grizzly. So these are two excerpts from the videos, and then so that you can kind of see them on their own. And then there's kind of an installation shot after these two videos of the space and kind of how they interacted with each other. But these two videos don't have audio. The space and the installation had audio. So I am open to any like questions or any conversations that we might want to have during this time when the video is quiet, or we can just watch either way.
I would just like to say that these videos kind of really bring like a sense of like old surrealist films to me, like dream sequences almost. I don't know, stream of consciousness. That's what I'm getting from these, and I'm really digging it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think especially I was doing a lot of like audio just journaling while I was at Grizzly Grizzly and on my walks to and from the space. And I kind of took that practice out to when I was sitting by the water there at the beginning. And there was this idea that I had been kind of thinking about, and it sort of stuck in my brain about this idea of like, can you think about two things or have like two thoughts at the same time? And it was like something that I just kept kind of coming back to, like, especially while I was putting this presentation together. And I think that's what kind of inspired the layers of audio, but also thinking about the idea that memories are the things in our mind, and we take them with us everywhere we go. And even if we're not actively tapping into them, they're still with us in some way. And you can tap into them if you go there or want to, or sometimes something kind of brings that forward in your brain or your mind. So I think all of that in kind of thinking about memory and the way we kind of compartmentalize things and the way we think about things has really inspired a lot of these works. And I think it's really interesting too, like in the world when, I'm on Zoom all the time and, teaching that way and just communicating that way with, friends and family. So I feel like it's become this very screen related world. And my work has suddenly sort of taken on the same format. And I find that really interesting. So my mind and my work and my new world is all kind of mushed together into this screen world. And I think it's been interesting to see that sort of reflected into my work and into life. So yeah, I never really thought I was sitting here yesterday with like getting all my work together and everything, and I had all this technology and I had a recorder out and my video camera, and I was like, I have been a very material based artist up until, like the last year. And I'm like, well, I guess there isn't really a surprise with that, right? Like our world has shifted and things have changed. So I think it's just kind of been an interesting mirroring of that. And also the world is just a really strange place right now. So I think my work maybe getting a little bit weirder also makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got this weird sense that like, I mean, obviously your work is about like memory and kind of like these subconscious thoughts, but also you're using like videography and like recording of a moment. So it's kind of this juxtaposition of like, I don't know, I feel like for me, my memories are always like very subjective. And when you go back to like a recording, it's like, oh, that's actually what happened. It's kind of like when you're a child and you remember something, everything is so big and magical. And then you go back and visit that place as an adult and you're like, oh, well, this isn't that cool, So it's I'm interested in that kind of like meeting place of recording and memory.
Yeah, and I think too, it's almost even more surreal or more weird, and this is going to have some this has the ambient sound of the installation in it. So I'll just keep that lowish so we can keep talking. But yeah, it's almost weirder when
There's a
the
telephone pole with a sign.
recording
on it
doesn't
that's
reflect
waiting on the
what
back.
you know. It's like, did I remember that
Poles
right, or is it just the recording
with
that's
white
tricky?
stripe that turn
So
into
yeah,
white
the
poles.
audio of this is actually
There's a van that's
me
been
describing my
hitting
walk
graffiti
to the gallery
for what
space.
appears to be a long
And you can see
time.
there was a big
Also
screen
looks like it
hitting
hasn't been used. It's been
about
parked on
a
the
third of
street,
the way into the
and
space.
there's snow piled up
And that
around
was
it.
playing
Only
the
one
video
on
that
the
you're
street
just
that
seeing,
looks like that.
but it was projected from the back. So you can see the signifiers
The bus
and
drove
then
by
it.
as I passed
I
this
think actually
little
works really nicely with the orientation of the gallery.
cube of a building. It says 11th Street Auto Sales.
And then there's the other piece that
Got
is
a
the
lock
door
and a
that's
gate on the door. Looks
the wall
rusted like
behind
it
it,
hasn't been opened in a
projected on
while.
the wall. And the two kind of
I stopped at the corner of Hamilton Street and 11th. There's a black paper bag slowly blowing across the street to where there's birds eating bread on the corner. There's a man in a blue shirt and a white bike that's driving up. I like this corner. There's lots of diagonal lines across the crosswalk. Have diagonal lines. Across the street with yellow poles with 2 orange cones and a sign strapped to them. It says no parking, temporary police location. There's a stack of 3 cones next to the telephone pole. There's a do not enter sign that's bent in 2 places. There's a hot dog container on the ground.
hot dog container.
I'm passing
One of my
a
favorites.
pallet plant with danger.
Very telling of the
Warning,
walk
no
outside.
trespassing beyond this point.
Yeah, so I
There's a
think
mirror
it
on
was
the
a
corner.
really interesting
Some of the
opportunity
people
to
can see
layer, like physically layer these different videos in space that obviously deal a lot with visually and conceptually with the idea of layering and coming and going. And I had a really interesting time in this space with figuring out, and it seemed like such a simple 1-2 video situation, but getting them to have the conversation I wanted between each other, it was interesting. And I the thing I thought I was going to do wasn't what I ended up doing. And yeah, I love when that happens. It sort of surprises you what works and what doesn't work.
Thanks so much for sharing your work. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I think those additional pieces really expanded my understanding of your work. I feel like I've gotten glimpses in some of your other talks, and it was really nice to see you put them all together and make those additional works with the layered audio. Those were really enjoyable. I guess this isn't really a question, but I was hoping you could talk about something. You talk a lot about layering.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's like, in some ways, sort of like a vernacular that's very sort of close to drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about your videos especially, and I think more about like revealing and concealing.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair to say.
Yeah.
And I guess I also started thinking about revealing and concealing because you talk about green screens.
Mm-hmm.
You have one object, like for instance in the gallery, obscuring another object, well, images, but also objects. And then I also start thinking about things like trompe l'oeil and like the eye. So like, I guess concealing and revealing on like a technical level, like one thing in front of another, but also like concealing and revealing like in terms of perception and sort of psychology and things like that. Sorry, I rambled on for a little while.
No, yeah, no, you're totally dead on to the spaces and the things that I'm really interested about the videos. And I think it also gets to the like non-perfectness of the green screens too. There's this like they kind of do a thing, like they almost do this trick, but then they don't, right? Like you can still see that there's some weird thing happening and it's like a little glitchy.
Yeah.
And I think like those are like the cracks in the seams that I really love, and I think are like the reason I like using that technology, because there's something really interesting that happens when I get to composite them together, and suddenly it becomes this thing that maybe I thought it was going to look one way and then it kind of becomes the other way. And there's like this, you know, reveal that happens even in the process. And I think for me that speaks to this idea of the way that we can kind of suppress or think about things, but then want to move away from them. But memories have this interesting way of being like magnetic, or we get sort of down these like ruts of thinking the same things over and over again. So I find it really interesting, this kind of, it's there and you want to see it or you don't want to see it, but then it, you know, kind of flitters and floats away. And I kind of on my like stream of consciousness thoughts there, I was talking about them and something came up about it being like a ghost, like almost like a ghostly image. And I find that is also this very like, it's something that you want to like grab and move away, right? Like a kind of Trump-like curtain, but you know, sometimes you can do it, you know, if you just wait, it might do it. And it's also in the process when I'm like waiting for wind to blow, right? I'm like standing there like, come on, it's been such a windy day. Now it's 5 minutes and nothing's happening. So that's kind of, you know, and you have to like wait for the sun and the wind to kind of do the same thing at the same time, the way you want it to. And yeah, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking a lot about how in that last video, like you show us an image that's for the most part stationary or focused, and then you have your drawing sort of being revealed on the side and integrating into that, and we're left to sort of ponder how those two things interact and what the origin of the image is and was it from that place. And you're both like sort of revealing and concealing something about that place, you know? And then at the same time, you're also like revealing something about the neighborhood and this walk that you've been taking. It's very close to the people that are at Grizzly, and then trying to create a linkage between that narrative and then the narrative from the image. And there's this constant interplay between you both showing and not showing us information. And I think one of the most interesting sort of manifestations of that is trying to draw a connection, whether there actually is one or not, and starting to wonder, oh wait, is she like circumnavigating the spot where this image is, this sort of strange industrial space, or is that just somewhere arbitrary that's meant to be relational, but not necessarily of the place from the narration? So I think that one of the greatest pleasures that I get from your work is trying to weave all that together and make my own sort of sense of it. And I appreciate that level of abstraction. Angela started off talking about how it's, you know, there's a clear linkage to surrealism, and I totally concur. And I think that unknowing part, that concealing, is what makes it so interesting for me anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
You don't just show us, you don't just show us everything, and you do these painstaking drawings and you mostly cover them up, right?
Yeah. and it's, you know, the one drawing is sitting in my room and it'll never go anywhere. It'll just be in that one video. So yeah, I think it's also a little bit of, I guess, like denial too, like denying myself kind of the, you know, satisfaction of being able to like show off a drawing, right? Like that's a fun thing to do, you know, and I think it's kind of changing it and taking it out of that context of presenting, you know, like I don't want to just, you know, for the sake of this work and in the concepts, I don't want to just present the thing right in front of you and just say, here it is, you know. It's a more nuanced presentation to it, and I like the little struggle, a little bit of allowing it but then taking it away too. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I wanted to read a comment from Deidra. She said, I appreciated your reflections on memory. I'm interested in memory, especially right now, because I feel like the moments with my son are always slipping away, like experiencing them in the moment and trying to memorize what's happening too. Thank you for your experimental presentation.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's that strange feeling of being in a moment that you want to remember, but then knowing that that's not really possible, and then thinking in that way is sort of changing you being in that moment, right? So it's this definite cyclical thing that you want to embrace it and be there, but it also is ever getting smaller and smaller, right, in the histories.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jayne. We're coming up on 6:30. So I really appreciate you coming here tonight and doing this presentation. If anyone has any quick last minute comments for Jayne, we'd love to hear them.
I've been getting some private thank yous and things, so I appreciate that. And
Oh, and one thing I didn't do yet, I need to put your website in the chat here.
And all of this work is so new that none of it's even actually on my website yet. So you guys all saw the pre.
Awesome. So, Jayne, where do you work and where can people find you? I mean, obviously on your website, but do you have anything? I mean, I know we're in weird times where no one has exhibitions planned, but if you have anything planned,
Yeah,
feel free to share.
yeah. I put up work on my Instagram. I will put my Instagram. Oops, maybe I won't. Yes, I will. My computer is like, I've been working really hard and it's time for me to be done. Okay. It's been exporting all day long. So it's just Jayne Struble _art.
It was worth all the effort.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I put things up on there, and I'm kind of fresh to. I've just moved to Philly about a year ago now, which seems crazy, even though it's been, during COVID time where I haven't really been able to experience as much as I would like to. But it is. I'm in Philly, and I'm gonna be, here for the long haul. So hopefully be seeing all of you in person at some point sometime soon.
When everything opens back up again, you're going to be amazed by the amazing art scene that we have in Philly. So
I am ready for it. I drove hours to get to it before, and now I'm here and it's shut down. So I'm ready.
We promise it's coming back.
It's coming back. We promise. I have faith. I see all the calls for art happening, and it's making me happy. So it's good.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming tonight. And yeah, we look forward to seeing more of your work, Jayne.
Thank you.